absolutely necessary. We have lived here in America for the last 400 years and have served our slave masters well before these past 100 years. And now the time has arrived that we want something for ourselves. The natural Spirit of God is moving in us and making us to think in such terms towards self. And the doing for self is now getting into the very life of the black man in America. We want to go for self. We want to be ourselves. This is aroused in us by God himself. And to oppose it means nothing but death to either side. If we oppose it, it's death for us. If others oppose it, it's death to them.
But even your own people oppose it, Mr. Muhammad, if I may interject a thought here. Most of the civil rights leaders with whom I know you disagree, Dr. Martin Luther King, Whitney Young, and Roy Wilkins, and James Foreman, and James Farmer, and any number of others, all believe in integration, getting along with the whites and moving into the same society.
This is all due to their lack of knowledge of the time and what should be done in such time. They don't know that this is their time, that they should be separated or they should go for themselves. This is what I'm trying to teach them. Teach them that this is the time that they should go for themselves.
But is it not, would you disagree that it is the ambition and the goal of most Negroes in this country to become Americans in every meaning of that word, to participate in our society, to be responsible, legitimate, honest citizens? Isn't that the goal of the overwhelming number of Negroes in this country?
It may be their goal, Mr. Cup, because that they don't even know, as I just said, that this is the time that they should be going for self. And lack of knowledge of the time, the lack of knowledge of self. The American so-called Negro, especially the leading class, do not actually know themselves. Excuse my voice as I'm look like trying to be a little hoarse this morning, but however, I may clear it up later. America's so-called Negro, as you know, have been kept in the dark of the truth of self and kind for now 400 years, and the only one to break forth this truth, it is God himself, as it is written. And the Bible, Ezekiel, and prophesied by Jesus, that the dead must rise, mentally dead. So our so-called leadership is as dumb as those they are leading to this knowledge. Therefore, they hopes that they could have a place somewhere in the life of the white man of America and in his country and government. They seek that place. Not that they seek some portion of the country, earth here. They seek only recognition of the white man as being a citizen of America and being his equal. This is the wrong thing to be seeking. Since we now have served our prophetic term of slavery here in America, and now we have a taste of education of our slave masters and their children. We don't go now to the colleges and universities of the white man looking for degrees to go back to him then for a job, to work, live with him, or some bread in the bread line.
Well, what is wrong with that ambition, Mr. Muhammad? It seems to be working out in growing numbers.
A subject, a servant all the time. He's not getting an equal place with his master by seeking a job. The only thing that he should seek now, since he admits that he's free, and he is free, he's not no more a servitude slave. He's free.
The growing number of Negroes who have achieved prominence in all the fields of this country, economic, the social life, the arts, indicates that there is tremendous progress being made, and the growing middle class of the Negro is tremendous today with the tremendous purchasing power.
Mr. Cuff, but the progress is only being made to the position or status of a more prominent servant, and not a servant that is equal with his master in owning such thing is placed on this earth that he can call his own like his master.
Then you say that people like the Dr. Ralph Bunches and any number of other Negroes who have achieved fame and fortune are still servants in this community?
His fame and fortune is not his. That's the white man. He have achieved fame and fortune for the white man, not for his black man. All that the prominent, I would say, politicians, teachers, and clergy, all has worked forward to the help of the white man to achieve fame for him and his race, but not for themselves and their race.
Let me take you to another area, Mr. Muhammad. Our government is spending millions of dollars in various programs mostly aimed at uplifting the Negro for better education, better job opportunity, a better share of this society. Now, isn't that a worthy commentary on the white man's role?
If the slave man is rich and richer, he can do better by his servant, his slave. But the slave is now, as I say, stands at the crossroad. He can go for himself. And why not the master teach him how to go for himself and provide him with the necessary means to go for himself, and not keep petting him around his door with a better suit of clothes.
Let's assume, Mr. Muhammad, that your separation policy comes into effect. You will ask the United States to give you a state large enough to take care of all the Negroes in this land. That would be about 1/5 of the territory.
Well, it's about 22 or more million of us.
And then you would ask the United States for 25 or 30 years, according to your book, The Message to the Black Man,
no,
to help operate this for 25 or 30 years.
Not 30.
25.
20 or 25.
And also to give you a land that's fertile and rich in minerals so that the Negro can thrive from the earth.
Yes, sir.
A justifiable living.
Yes, sir.
How would you bring an economic system? How would you get the people to start a new state?
How would we get them to start? I'm asking you for the start.
You want the government to start the state for you, to build all the buildings and give you the educational system, and give you the business.
We believe that you are obligated to start us off in such state, according to your own civilization, or set up for your own civilization. It means that you have to set your own race up as an independent race here today, not what you had 400 or 500 years ago, but what you have today.
Let me pause for just a moment, Mr. Muhammad. We still have to interrupt for commercials on this program. Pause for a moment and be right back with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad, while we're talking about this very unique proposition of yours as expressed in the Message to the Black Man and, of course, in all your philosophy, it's interesting to note that Abraham Lincoln once proposed or thought that all Negroes, perhaps for their own best interest, should be moved to a separate state. And Garvey, a great leader of the Negroes many, many years ago, proposed that the Negroes have their own state. He was never too successful. And if I remember correctly, the communists in the early 30s, at the height of the Depression, urged that the Negroes be given their own state in an effort to capitalize on their following, I presume. None of these ever came to fruition or were ever successful or ever interested too many Negroes. How do you figure that you today can get Negroes to leave this country of theirs and go elsewhere?
Well, I will not have any power to do, don't have any power, to do any more than those teachers that preceded me on the same subject. I myself don't have any power of myself to bring about such change. But God is with me. to bring it about. And the time is with me.
How has your God, Allah, manifested himself in this presentation?
He have manifested himself in the person of a man, and with the knowledge of the end of the history that we have been in service to white people, and the time that we should be separated from them. This knowledge was given by him, and he is the one that is backing it up. It is not me. I don't want you to look at me as nothing but a messenger. That's all I am, just a messenger to tell you what someone said to me. This that I have said to you concerning the separation, it is not say contrary to prophecy. The sayings of the prophets concerning a separation of the slave and his master. It is not contrary. But where I come in at there of asking you if you would like to do something for yourself in admitting this justice from yourself, as this is nothing but justice, to give the slaves something to go with if you have freedom. That America has never done for us. Our parents was never given anything to go for self. Now, the time have come that God himself will intervene to separate the so-called Negro or the lost members of their people, the black nation of the earth, from their once slave masters. This is the time, according to the prophetic sayings and writings of prophets, that we must be separated.
I just want to ask you one question along the separation theory before we move on. There are approximately 22 million Negroes in the United States. There's an estimated 100,000 members of these who belong to your sect. Now, how can you expect 100,000 to dominate 22 million who don't feel the same way that you do?
Oh, Mr. Cups, the number doesn't mean anything. We have history dating back that just less people than that. Even the people that dominated in the world today, your own race, they was not started with even 100,000. Only 59,000 was used to make your own world. It don't make any difference about the number. It's only the one that believing in the honest about accomplishing the aim and the purpose.
If you had your choice of territory in this country, what would you select?
Well, I'm not saying, as I have said time and again, I will not say, well, I would like to have a room in your house. Whoever you are willing to give me a room there.
Mr. Muhammad, in your book, you also say that war between the non-whites and the whites is inevitable.
If you will permit me, Mr. Cup, I would like to go back here to this separation again.
All right.
We often has been misunderstood on this. We know that the prophesied says that we should be returned or will be returned to our own. But I have said here in this book, and almost weekly I'm saying something about it, that if America wants to ease their troubles, as this is the trouble that she is confronted with, it is way. I don't care what someone might say or may say about the problem, but the problem of America, it is her slave. And the solution has been given. And this is just only a little twist of the solution that I am presenting to America today. That instead of all of this I would say mistreating the poor man, crying out today for more justice and better justice, better recognition, put him him over here in some place. You have a house big enough to do so. Put him over here someplace to himself. Regardless to what he says, you knows the truth. You know that he should be somewhere to himself, because you will never agree to all that he demands you of. You cannot do so unless you want to become a subject slave yourself, or that you want to get in the same status that your slave is in, to yield to all of his demands. That is trying to respect a once slave as your equal. You can't do that and keep your respect in the world of civilized nation. But you can, I should say, stop trying to force the ideal in the slave that he is as good, he is as honored, he is as much as the master. This cannot be accepted as truth, even from the master.
Would you
I
deny?
just given, if you will just permit me, I will give you a chance then. By giving him a chance to sit in the house with you and talk with you and your family, or even marry your sons and daughters, that's not yet making him your equal. Or to prepare in your laboratories jobs for him, factories, build factories to give him a job, keep him at work. That is not making him your equal yet. He's still unequal. And it's a real ignorant thing to say he's my equal because I give him social status with me. This is bad on the white man's part, even to offer his slave integration in marriage, intermarriage. It only makes him worse in the eyes of the world, and his intelligence is now has been, I would say, lost, and his decency of his society is lost, even by just offering the slave such opportunity. But if he would go and offer his slave a place over here to himself, say, boy, you have allowed me to use this slave. Boy, you have been a good old plowboy for me. Now I'm going to let you plow for yourself. Here's a mule, here's a plow. I will furnish you plow tools until that you are able to pay for them or make them yourself.
You don't think that the white man really thinks of the Negro as boy anymore? That
I
this
said
era
that
has
allow
passed
me
so
to
many
use
years
the word,
ago?
but he still calls them boys in many parts of the country.
You still refuse to acknowledge, though, that the tremendous progress of any number of Negroes in all the arts, in all the political world, in all the sports world, in the entertainment world, in education, these people are not the equal of the whites with their tremendous success?
Well, if he has made progress in the way of civilization for the white man, or in the civilization of the white man, well, why object then to him going doing this for himself? Let him make a way from now for himself.
But don't you feel, Mr. Muhammad, that this success is generated among the Negro youth who look up to these people as idols, and they themselves take a place in society as successful people, inspired by their own people who have made successes?
Until he learned the truth. When he learned the truth of himself and of those who that he's worshiping, then he will go for himself, as I have the spirit to go for myself. I don't want to be a slave for you. I don't want you to use me as a servant. I want to be my independent self. I want some of this earth for my people like you. You came here and taken it by the knowledge and power of your own fathers from the Indian, and you made a great country out of it. Then you goes back to my country and brings us here to serve you as slave, free labor. For 300 years we have did that for you, willingly or unwillingly. We did so, and our fathers. Now for 100 years you say we are free, and 100 years we are not free. We are so blind, deaf, and dumb, we still look forward to you to make our clothes for us, get the cotton and the wool, go and put it through the mills and make cloth out of it for us, and we still sitting looking at you do all of this for us.
Mr. Muhammad, if you'll pardon me, I must say that your interpretation of the Negro is far different than mine. You sound more like Governor Wallace when you say the Negro is deaf, dumb, and blind. You don't want to be linked with Governor Wallace as one of the outstanding
I say that
racists.
because God himself said it. It's written in the Bible and Quran. Wallace didn't like this.
No, but he announces and enunciates the same principle that you're enunciating.
Well,
the Negro is dumb.
Well,
not
he's
equal
saying
to-
what God in the Bible says. The Bible says that we are blind and dumb and even dead.
Well, many people certainly will disagree with anything that the Wallace
they
recites
disagree
on
with
the-
God and the prophets then.
Only in your Bible, not in any other Bible.
It's in your Bible.
That the Negro is dumb and
I
blind.
got mine from you.
We'll have to pause for a moment, Mr. Muhammad, for a message, and we'll be right back. Mr. Muhammad, I know you want to say a few more words on separation before we go into
Sir,
another
Mr.
subject.
Cup, I'm very anxious to finish what we started with on the separation. It is very nice and good of America to prepare educationally her slave that she once had in servitude. The education that we have acquired from white America, it helps us to begin for self anywhere on this earth that we may prefer to go or stay. If we are to stay here with you, we must stay in a separate part of America with you. And the education is still accepted. We need all the education, I must stop and say that we can, of good education, to help us to go for self. And as far as our reaction to what we have acquired in the way of education, it doesn't mean that we should now be satisfied to remain with you just because that we have now acquired more respect of self in the way of education and can do more better service for you than we have in the past. The thing of it is, since we have acquired enough to make a step out of the house of bondage where that our fathers was enslaved or put in bondage, we should now go, and you should help us to go and provide the necessary means for us to continue going in the way of self. This would also give you a great and a good name. The slave master sent his slave off with the provision to keep going for himself. We need modern tools now. We don't need to apply new. We need a tractor. And we need the land, certainly, that will provide a living and the necessity of life otherwise, such as buildings and other machineries. We want that we can go into as you have went into it, and pull out of her treasures the necessary means for us to build a nation for ourselves.
But is this consistent, Mr. Muhammad, with your position? You were saying about the Negro doing things for himself. Then you say the government must turn around and give him all this territory and operate it for him for 20 years.
We think the government is obligated. We have given her 400 years. And now we want to go for ourselves. How are we to get started for ourselves if the slave master is not willing to provide the means for us to go free for ourselves?
In your position on separation, did you feel that the Supreme Court made a mistake in 1954 when it ruled that segregation must end in the public school systems?
No, I don't say the government made a mistake by saying that the kind of segregation that we have lived under should be terminated. I don't think she made any mistake there. But I do think the government is making a mistake now to try to hinder us from being separated, since we have already lived under segregation for the past centuries. Now we would like to be separated and live over here to ourselves, since we cannot get along with you in peace.
Let me take you into another area that we discussed at the opening of the show, Mr. Muhammad. That is your prediction in the book, The Message to the Black Man, that the whites and the non-whites inevitably must come to a war. Do you really feel that there must be a war between the races?
If you will not submit to the law of justice, freedom, justice, and equality, and submit to do good. Second, this is the time that good confronts us to rule the people, and not evil. Your history teaches us that you have always warred. In Europe, there was once a 100-year war, a 30-year war, and they have continued a war history of your race ever since you had civilization.
But it isn't only the white man, Mr. Muhammad. Every man, white, red, yellow, has always engaged in war just as much as the white man.
History never give us any knowledge of a war between the brown, yellow, black races before you.
Well, the Chinese and the Japanese warred for many, many centuries, and certainly the blacks in Africa had their tribal wars, and the Muslims and Christianity had their religious wars. War has been a part of man ever since.
And in your sphere of ruling the people since 6,000 years, you will mention what happens in the period of 6,000 years. Well, you are the boss there. You started there.
You maintain that the white man, according to this book, has been on this earth only 6,000 years.
Only 6,000
and that the black man was here many, many years, centuries before.
We don't have no birth record.
But the anthropological facts may differ with you, but this is, of course, according to your religion, right?
It depends on the man who does the analyzation of this past history of our people, bones and rocks and whatnot.
Your statement of inevitable war is so reminiscent of what Red China has been saying, that the yellow race and with the colored race will fight the white race, that it's a little frightening that you would be on the same beam, the same line of reasoning with him.
We cannot move ourselves if we are there by God himself. In the beginning we are there, and you are there. In the very beginning, we cannot change nothing, and I'm not asking no one to accept any change that I would try and make, because I'm not trying to make one. Everything, Mr. Cup, that I say concerning the truth, whether it's war or whether it's separation of nations, I have it from Bible, Quran, from Jesus, from all the prophets in the past, from God himself, and I'm not talking myself. I'm talking what God and his prophets say.
Of course, Mr. Muhammad, Jesus, and all the other recognized religious leaders always preached love, not hatred.
I take for an instant, Jesus, he taught love of his Father. We used the name he used there. He taught that we should love the Father. We should love the word or the teachings of God. We should love the man that loves God and loves the teachings of God. This was Moses' teaching to Israel, was to love thy God with all thy heart, soul, might, and strength. But you are not taught